for the World Cup winter season. And I'm here with Frantisek Pavlousek, the designer of UP right now. He used to be the designer of Axis Paragliding, famous maker of the Mercury.
Yeah.
Yes. If you remember, at the time, the Mercury, first Mercury was like the safe alternative, really, for the hot ships that were flying at the time with prototypes, and the Mercury was like well-rounded, and you could speed. And it was really forgiving.
Yeah.
And I tried the new UP, and it's really feeling really safe and really fun. And congratulations!
Thank you.
And I must say, it's really nice to see UP back in the little small world of competition gliders, high-end stuff. Beautiful. I saw you guys flying the other day, and I thought, oh my God, it's a beautiful glider. I want to try it, and tried it. Thank you very much. It's like an injection of adrenaline or use or something. So tell me what happened. Basically, when you went to UP, it was the same year when Xavier died, and we had that big event in Piedrahita, right? Almost.
Yeah,
2011.
Yeah, at that time, 10 or 11, 2010 maybe. I moved to UP.
So it was basically really hard to get back to prototypes. So there was Mats who was really advocating that we stay with the prototype circuit. That didn't work out really well, and we ended up with the END, and then the CCC, where we're at now after a long process. Now you think you're confident with this glider, you're going back in production with the CCC glider?
Yeah, I think we have been working all the time on the comp gliders, but at the beginning it was very shaky times when END was necessary for the END certification was necessary for the comp gliders, and we knew already that it's not the right way where to go, because the D gliders disappeared, the old style D gliders disappeared at that time and were pushed to the C category. And there were many changes in quite a short time, and we didn't want to waste energy. On one side, we didn't want to waste energy on doing these competition two-liners in END, but on the other hand, we knew that the time will change, and we knew that it's necessary to continue to keep. So we were the two-liners, we were still doing the prototypes, still doing something with them. So 1 year ago we came with Meru, the END two-liner, and now we have the Guru, the two-liner CCC. I think the CCC is a good compromise between no certification and END. I don't think it will be good to stay with END for the comps.
But I think with UP, even before you arrived at UP with the Triangle line, they were already looking at that market niche, which is a really high-end END with good all-around characteristics, almost as close to the highest performance glider, but just a little bit under, but more stable at speed. Triangle 1 was like this, and the latest series of Triangles were also impressively performing, right?
If I talk about the new wings, not about old designs of UP, but if I talk about my design, they are our
Did you design any of the Triangles?
Yeah, the Triangles, all the last Triangles of the last years are of the new team.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So the philosophy is to keep the maximum possible safety with the performance the glider has. So it's every time it's a compromise. You can feel that on the Guru when you fly it, you can feel that the stability of the glider is there. I don't want to.
I think it looks more stable than the latest Triangle. I'm not sure. I haven't flown any of them, but from what I've seen, especially in Aksaray, where it was really
Yeah, but you can compare with other CCCs, you mean?
with other
Guru with
CCCs.
other CCCs.
And latest one that was, what was Daria flying before the Guru? It was also a triangle.
Yeah, she was flying.
Triangle
No,
four.
she was flying Meru. She was flying before. She was flying Trango, and now she's flying Meru.
Yeah,
I
think,
expect her to fly Guru next year.
I
She's
think-
looking forward. I know she will fly.
I think you have no problem with it. It's
No, it's the
pretty
same.
straightforward for me, and
Yeah,
really
it's
total
still the
control of
same.
the glider.
It's still the same line of the gliders. It's still the same handling, same philosophy. Of course, it's a step forward regarding the performance, regarding the style of flying or handling or pilot skills. It's a step forward. It's a step forward between Tarango and Meru. It's another step forward between Meru and Guru. But the wings are, they keep the same mind or the same philosophy, same feeling when you fly.
How about the turn? I really like the turn of the Guru. Is Meru's turn better? It's smaller aspect ratio, so technically.
I don't know if it's better, but it's again it's a bit more demanding, Guru compared to Meru.
Really?
Yeah, but the same philosophy. So I think it's same easy again. The same feeling. The same. I think it's good if you follow the line. If you fly one glider and you make a step, it's even when you come from a school glider to your second glider in your life. It's the same philosophy. You should keep. You learn in the school as a student. You learn for something, and if you like the feeling of the glider, then you buy the next glider from the same company. From the same R&D team, and you will be surprised if it's different. So it's good if it's the same team doing the same wings, and they are changing step by step from easiest to the most demanding to the most performant. But still, it is the same line. It's not jumping left and right. It's still the same line going to from beginners to the
Totally.
to the
I totally agree with that.
So I think with the handling, it's all the time the same. I like when the handling is direct, when there is a communication with the glider, when the glider gives you a feedback. I wouldn't be able to fly a wing when you don't feel the air around you. So there must be a good compromise of the feedback. It must be a good balanced feedback, because if there is too much feedback in rough condition, it starts to be just too much. It starts to make you tired very soon or very fast or something like that. So it has to be a good balance every time.
And do you think to get maneuverability, you need to have fragile tips, or you need to tune the tips to be really attacking?
Yeah, in general, it's my philosophy to make the tips a bit softer. I know a lot of designers, they have very stable tips. I prefer to make the tips a bit softer. It's like the fingers, the last fingers or from the birds, they fly like this. There is something, it gives you more stable center, because the stability, the 100% of stability is on the whole span. So the more lift you put on the tips, the left lift, that means the left stability stays in the center. So you have to put the balance between the center and the tips. You have to find a good balance. And someone prefers balance when there is more rigid tips and a bit softer center. I prefer the opposite, when the center is more stable, more proof against turbulences, and the tips are a bit softer, because then you feel better what is in the air. And if there is a collapse, it's a small collapse of the tips. It's good that the tips doesn't want to make cravats. It's good if they are a bit softer, so they don't go into the lines.
Is it the same profile as the tips?
No.
So is it a more stall resistant profile at the tips?
Sorry?
Is it a profile at the tips more stall resistant? Does it work better at close speed? I mean,
no, it's different. The profile in the center is the most stable and the most resistant to all angle of attack changes. and the tip profile is designed to make the wing nice in overall behavior, but it's less stable than the center. But it doesn't have any stall problems. When you flew the wing, you haven't felt that tips are moving back, even with the aspect ratios.
That could mean that this profile works better at low speed, because I saw that when I pull the brakes in some videos, you can see that the brake line goes like this towards the tip. So, and it looks nice when it turns, because it looks like the glider is really kind of bending on the end, you know. But it's just absolutely no feeling of the stall. One thing important about the UP that I just learned now is that you're using Dyneema on the whole glider now, but it's Dyneema DC.
It's Dyneema DC. It's not on the whole
What
glider.
does DC mean?
DC, it's a Leros DC. It's one type of one company producing the lines. Those who are flying longer, as you do, those know the lines, because 10 years ago there was an issue with these lines. Many brands had a problem, including UP and including Axis, when I've been working at that time, that the lines are shrinking. But they are shrinking there where there is not enough tension. That means external parts, wingtips, brake lines, real lines, they shrink down. So the glider was totally losing the correct setup, line setup, correct trim of the angle of attack. Most of the brands, 10 years ago when this issue occurs, totally left usage of these lines. They totally left those lines and said, the lines are wrong. But before we started to use these lines in Axis, more than these 10 years ago, before we started to use them, we made a lot of tests. We have been using the same as all the rest of the world in that time. We have been using 8000. It's a predecessor of 8000 Technora line from Edelring. Most often used line, unsheeted line. I'm talking about unsheeted lines now, of course. We are talking about unsheeted lines. Most often used unsheeted lines in that time, and 8000U most often used unsheeted line now. This line is more elastic. We have been doing a lot of tests before we started to use Dyneema DC instead of Edelring 8000 in that time, now 8000U. And what we have found during these tests, that the line is less elastic, the DC is less elastic. That means when you enter the terminal, the leading edge moves up, but it moves up less when you use DC compared when you use 8000, when you use Edelring Technora 8000. We have measured it that in the workshop, in the office, we have made a lot of measurements, and we came to this information that the DC should work better on the glider. We tested that.
Then the Technora.
Yeah, than Technora. What we
for
did.
For that effect
for that effect,
because pitch-up.
Because what happens if the lines are elastic?
It's like a shock.
Yeah, if the lines are elastic, you come in the terminal, the lift forces, they moved, the pressures are moving.
Starts from the leading edge.
Yeah, exactly. So what happens, the leading edge goes up. You enter the terminal, leading edge goes up, and the effect that the glider goes backwards and you have to release the brakes and you have to wait, it's increased. It's not only aerodynamics, but it's only also effect of the changing of angle of attack. It's like when you enter the terminal and you put the C lines in that moment. It's the same effect. We have found this in the workshop. So what we did, we checked that in the reality. We take one glider, put the lines 1 Mercury in that time. We have discussed about Mercury already, funny. We put lines away from one glider, put instead of Technora 8000, we put the DC lines there, and the glider was flying better. The glider was really flying better for terminaling.
Even brand new.
Yeah, and we started to use that. We started to use that immediately for all the gliders. So it was, I don't know, it was the year 2005 or something like that. We started to use these lines, and 2000, I don't remember, 10, 2000, no, earlier, 2008, 9, there was the problem, the issue that the lines were shrinking on the external and rear parts. As I said, most of the brands stopped using these lines, and we said, no, we know that the lines are good, but we must not use them when they are not in tension. So we kept them in the front section, in the middle of the canopy, and we started to use in the rear part and the external part the 8000.
A lot of companies use them only
So
at the top level.
yeah, because when they are short, they shrink 1%. So if they are 1 meter long, they shrink 1 centimeter,
And
even without no
more
tension.
distribution.
Yeah, even when there is no tension. If there is a tension, they don't shrink. That's the problem. You remember the story 10 years ago? Everybody was saying, yeah, your glider shrink, the D line shrink, the C line shrink, or stabilo line shrink. You have to connect the risers somewhere and pull them. But when you are flying, the A lines
still now with the camera.
but the A lines they stay in the tension all the time. Every second in the air they are shrinked.
So,
Stretched. Sorry.
Okay.
Stretched.
we know that. There are problems with Dyneema, but now the Dyneema DC fixes most of the problem, and the new UP Guru is free with Dyneema DC.
No, it's not fully. It's this combination.
Of Dyneema DC at the back,
No, Dyneema DC in the front.
In the front.
You have to use the Dyneema DC
because it's less sensible to those.
when there is a tension. So what happens? You enter the terminal, and because it's less elastic, the leading edge doesn't go that much up.
What do you have in the back then?
8000 U. What is more
It's the same
flexible?
color. It's the same color, so it's almost.
Yeah, it's the same color. They are all they are red on our gliders,
Yeah.
but in the front it's Dyneema DC, and in the back part it's 8000U. In Stabilos it's 8000U. There is on some places there is a combination of 8000U plus Dyneema DC, because we made a calculation, because we have a lot of experience with these lines. We are using that more than 10 years, much more. The whole world left from these lines, escaped from this problem, but we learned how to use the problem, how to solve the problem. So we are using this combination on Trango, we are using that on Summit, we have it on Meru with no complaints. And Michal was flying Guru this season, and he's checking every 10 hours, every 20 hours, he's checking the glider, the correct trim, and he didn't need to make any fixes of the trim, because the glider doesn't change the angle of attack setup, it doesn't change the trim.
It ages right.
Yeah, it ages right.
It ages correctly.
It ages
The way it should. It should.
the way it should.
It's using every material's characteristics
Yeah.
to get.
Yeah, you understand the problem. That's it.
To get your ultimate goal, which is a glider which has, like you said, instead of stalling almost.
Yeah.
When you hit it and then it comes back and then pitch attacks too much and dives down. Okay, what happened now is instead of you have more static dimension of the A's, which means you bite in it right away, and the B's kind of lets go, so you bite it almost even more, so it kind of counteracts that hit you get from the terminal. So you're biting in it, and then when you come out, the A's is not coming back because it didn't stretch.
Yeah.
But the B is coming back, so
maybe even that
dampens.
effect is there, but at least there is not an effect that the leading edge goes up when you enter the terminal. So it's stretched. Now you go out from the terminal and it shrinks because it's elastic. It's not like that.
Yeah.
So
It's
you
like
go. Maybe it's what we have been talking about the glider, that it floats like this, because when the lines are elastic, it floats like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a
That's
material-induced stability augmentation. Okay. It turns sharp, I tell you, it turns sharp. So we're really happy that, and everybody at the World Cup is really happy that UP is back, and next year, super final, is Michal qualified?
yeah. Michael is qualified. Yeah.
You have 2 gliders for the super final.
Well, I think more. I hope more.
3, I think
I cannot say now how many pilots because the wing is new, and of course most of the pilots want to fly the wing, test the wing, and after they decide if to fly or not. So I know there are a few pilots who are going with the wing, but I expect there will be more who test and say, oh, we like it and nice. And of course, with these pilots, it's also a matter of the financial question, because the good pilots, they are used not to pay the full price. They are used to have special conditions. That's reality.
More and more.
Yeah. But
lately,
but there is some reality, so we have to be realistic, and I think it's a question of a deal or discussion. Local deal or important in the country. I don't know how it's now. I've been flying the comps 10 years ago, and it was normal that the importing country, big importer, had his own team. Basically, he sponsored a few pilots for the team. So it's. But the most important, I think, it's the question. Pilots test the glider now. The glider is coming in the production. The pilots test the glider and they say, yeah, I like it.
But I think personally that this glider, you could put it into the hands of maybe a younger pilot, because from what I feel, maybe it's because I tell you, in the old days, the first Axis Mercury, that's the glider you would, as an honest cross-country pilot, you would advise to coming from a D pilot towards those prototypes at the time.
Yeah, it was a easy wing. Yeah,
it was a really nice step to step up to that kind of glider with all the performance and the nice overall behavior. It was winning competitions and a lot of things at the time. So, and it'd be nice if some more pilots.
Yeah, it would be nice. Yeah,
could
to have the similar success with this wing, it would be nice, because I don't know, in Australia 2007, I think it was, we had, Axis had 12 pilots or maybe more, 15 pilots flying in the comp. A small brand, Axis was a small brand in that time.
And the gliders now, they're very demanding. I think the Enzo 3 and the Boom 11, I'm flying the Boom 11, it's demanding. As a pilot, you need to be fully there. And
it's different. I think it's different than it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Some gliders in that times were tricky to fly. Some gliders like Mercury were quite easy to fly. So now I think the average or the overall skills necessary to fly the two-liner, they're higher. You should be a good pilot, a really good pilot. I think the gliders are more stable.
Yeah.
They are stable. But if suddenly something occurs, I think it's more tricky to get them under control again. With Mercury, you just flew the glider, and if there was a problem, we were used to say, hands up and wait. I don't think with a two-liner, if there is a big problem, that means some cravat comes or something, you just can make full stall, hands up and wait. I don't think with the two-liner you can use this philosophy.
Every designer has his own tricks to do this, and I'm sure you come from a long tradition of tricks for tuning gliders.
Long tradition.
And as a pilot, it's better. It's usually easier to follow the same designer, and then you get back all the same marks. And then you can step from one glider to another easily. So it's hard to change from one glider, from one brand to another, from one designer to another. So it's better if it's easier. If you have to step from one company to another, and it's harder.
It depends. Sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes you take another glider from another company, and the philosophy is so different that you don't understand the wing. It's not a bad wing, of course, it's not a bad wing, but you just are used to something totally different, so you don't understand these characteristics or this
Yeah.
naturality of the glider. It's a different language, it speaks to you. But for example, I have a feedback from medal pilots when they came from Trango. They said the handling is the same language. It's exactly the same language. It's a two-liner instead of three-liner. It's D instead of C, but the wing talks to you totally same language. So you immediately understand. It's what you said about the handling on Guru, about the turn. It's same language. So the pilots who make a step forward. I expect, for example, Daria Krasnova from Russia. I expect her to be very happy with Guru because she's used to medal and it's the same language again. So this is my expectation, of course. Let her try the wing.
I think for myself and from what I saw you, Michal, fly and the way you were flying in those very tight, in those gullies, in those very sharp rocks. It's gonna work nice with Daria for sure. So I think we're gonna switch to Michal. Thank you very much for your help. I had one more question, but I forgot it.
I will come later. So should Michal sit here?
Yeah, wait, I think very short, very quick, if I can find my... Oh yeah,
I will.
okay, maybe if you have more pilots and then you can create an emulation and then some sort of... the pilots can help themselves understand and push the glider to where its best configuration is. I don't know, maybe it's full speed like a lot of gliders, but I think if you analyze any aircraft, it's got high points, low points, as well around it. It will have a distribution of good and bad points, and as a pilot you should fight in the high points area. I don't know if you really already saw where the best potential is, but...
This is a question for Michal because basically this is based on the feedback. But the feedback I got from him during the comms, he says, you can ask him, but I expect him to confirm that I'm right with this. He told me he felt the best when he pushed full gas, when the conditions were strong and he was flying full gas. He felt the glider to be more stable than people around. He was very happy with this part. So this is a strong point of the glider.
More than half bar?
Yeah, I would say full.
Full.
Okay. Full, half?
It's possible.
Full. He's saying full. When he's flying full, of course, it doesn't mean that the full bar is more safe than trim speed. But that means that the full bar, it feels safer than the others. When the conditions were strong and they flew on the full bar, that he was gaining compared to the others because he could stay with the full bar and the others were sometimes start to be scary in the conditions. And he was saying no, he felt very safe and he pushed the glider.
Good to know.
And he was very happy in that conditions.
All right.
So together with the sharp turns, as you said, as you like.
Yeah,
for the strong conditions, I expect the glider to be a very good weapon. For that.
The big problem you can have, I think, is being too far ahead and then making a mistake. Oh yeah.
No, control. You don't need to be too far ahead. It's just that if you just use that for the final glide, that if you go through the area with bumpy conditions to the goal, you can stay on the full. That means if you leave the last goggle or the last terminal, you leave with the others. You come from the last terminal together with the others. And you pass through the bumpy area, you can win the task because you can stay full and you don't have collapses.
And maybe the glider, you can see it on the very fast accelerated videos, maybe the glider can stay on a tighter path instead of. Sometimes it's good to float, but sometimes with headwind it's better to have a tight path.
Yeah, it's floating well. It's floating well because if it doesn't float with the two liners or with the actual situation of the comms, if your glider doesn't float, you can't make a good result because you lose on any transition, especially when it's headwind transition. If it doesn't float, it has to float. But the question is, if it floats like this, or if during floating it's moving a bit front,
back,
maybe
that's
sometimes
also-
front, sometimes back. If your glider is just going like up.
But that's also the art of the pilot with the speed bar and the B's and C's.
Yeah, it's the art.
If you feel a little bit of floaty air,
Of course,
you'll be able
of
to
course.
use it, release, and then
You know,
make the nice curve to exit.
yeah, you know, I think Michael is a good pilot. He's a very good pilot, but I think World Cup is flown by very good pilots in overall. So it's all the pilots there are very good. So if already he was able to make a good result there, that means that the glider is able to do that.
All right, so I get you to say that the World Cup is a good place to test gliders also.
No, it's the best place.
Yeah.
The best place to test the Formula One is to ride the Formula One. You know, to compete with others. That's the only chance. That's very good that you can use the RFC, ready for certification glider, because then you fly together with the best pilots of the air. You fly with the same conditions. You are pushing the same way as they do. That's the only way how to move the sport forward. For me, of the last 10 years, changing the rules, this is the best what the World Cup made, the RFC.
Yeah.
The RFC possibility to fly ready for certification gliders in the comp. That's great thing. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a great thing.
And I tell you that UP coming back to the scene is like Lotus coming back to Formula One or something.
Yeah, thank you.
It's
nice.
famous brands. Okay, thank you for this.
Michael is going to see it.